No.
Yes, it's his time.
The ranking member made a misstatement that's been repeated in the press, and I'd just like to correct it. That affidavit refers to approximately, I think it's 142, but call it 150 guns that Mr. Malinowski purchased over 4 years, which I can tell you, I could name a lot of people in Arkansas that have bought 150 firearms in 4 years. It only documents 6, I believe, sales of any firearms in that affidavit, not 150. It documents that he purchased 150 guns, but it only documents that he sold about 6.
Which you're allowed to do in America, right?
As far as I know.
Gentleman's recognized.
Yeah, I mean, this whole case is outrageous to me. And Ms. Malinowski, I feel like we owe you an apology on behalf of the American government today, because ATF isn't going to give you that apology. So we'll do it today on behalf of our government, who just, I kind of uniquely situated. I have a military background, but my father's a retired sheriff, did 20 years on the SWAT team, executed countless search warrants. My brother's 10 years on the SWAT team, still on the force, executed countless search warrants. And, you know, you have conversations with them. I have a military background, so I kind of understand clearing a room and that sort of thing. And when they execute a search warrant, they would wait until the individual wasn't at their home where they knew that there was a firearm present to avoid a situation where one of their officers were injured. And your testimony is, and it's in the record, that they followed Mr. Malinowski. They knew where he worked. Mr. Gates made a very good point that he worked at an airport, a secure environment where it would have been very easy to go in and execute a search warrant. And if they were going to arrest him or question him, do that there where there were no weapons involved. It would have been peaceful. Did ATF ever serve him with an administrative cease and desist letter?
No, sir.
Did he have
Not to my knowledge.
Did he have any knowledge or understanding that he was being investigated for any type of crime?
Well, obviously, he's not available for me to ask that question to, but to the best of my knowledge and based on our investigation, the answer is no.
You and his wife, yes. Obviously.
Yes, sir.
Since Malinowski did not receive a cease and desist letter, did he ever get any other, well, I just asked that. In ATF search warrant application, agents indicate that they talked to him on February 8th, just over a month prior to the raid. The agents indicate that he attempted to elude them. Is there any indication that Mr. Malinowski was ever aware that the people following him were law enforcement officers?
No, that portion of the affidavit is comical.
Would you like to expand?
Maybe embarrassing. I mean, it's an irrelevant portion of the affidavit where they talk about traffic and him trying to follow him. It sounds like somebody that isn't a very good driver to me, and I'm familiar with the area that they're describing, and everybody is in jeopardy when they make that transition, but it has nothing to do with this case.
And again, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, so he doesn't know he's being investigated. There's no like letter that's sent that you need to cease and desist of what you're doing, or we would like to have a conversation with you. It sits hard with me because I would react the exact same way. If somebody beat my door in at 6 o'clock in the morning, I can guarantee you myself and my wife would be approaching the door with a firearm. So it's not and you would think that the ATF agents would also conclude that that's a reasonable response to your door getting beaten in at 6 o'clock when you don't know you're being investigated. Does ATF typically have body cams? Does Little Rock Police Office Department typically have body cams?
Interestingly, according to my understanding, Little Rock Police does wear body cams, but they didn't have them on that morning, and so they were under the supervision of ATF, and you have to ask ATF why Little Rock didn't have theirs on.
But Little Rock typically does have body cams. And again, my experience with my family, they have body cams, and if they would have turned them off in the execution of a search warrant, that would be a very big problem for any law enforcement agent that is involved in an execution of a search warrant with no body cameras fulfilled.
That's one of the specific times they'd be required to have them on.
Did ATF ever have an opportunity to serve this search warrant at a time when it would have been less dangerous?
Probably 1,000 opportunities that we could sit here and say.
I've only got, I'm just outraged. I mean, Mr. Golden said that it was a no-knock. It was not a no-knock warrant. And you stated that there was like 47 seconds or something. So if they did knock at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's reasonable that the Malinowskis didn't hear that. That's because correct. You wouldn't be approaching, if somebody knocked on my door at 6 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't assume that it's a bad guy because they wouldn't knock. But if you hear a door beaten in at 6 o'clock in the morning, there was such a short period of time between the door getting kicked in and knocked in, and then Mr. Malinowski being shot, that it's reasonable to believe that they didn't hear the knock if there was a knock, which I'm looking forward to the Judiciary Committee asking all these questions. I hope that the chairman's going to ask for, and I know they have asked for every officer that was present that day, because I would love for this committee with the oversight authority that we have over the ATF to depose every single one of those officers that were present that day and get a sworn deposition from every single one of those people. And again, Mrs. Malinowski, I'm sorry for your loss and the loss of your family to a clear abuse of the rule of law, in my opinion. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to express my condolences to Mrs. Malinowski. I'm terribly sorry for your loss and for what you had to